Picking an association management system, it's probably one of the biggest strategic decisions you're going to make. And look, it's not just about buying some new software, right? It's a real investment in where your organization is headed. So today, we're going to cut through all that noise and put two major open source players head to head, CiviCRM and Tendenci. Hey there, I'm with SmartThoughts. We're a software advisory firm, and basically, we live and breathe this stuff, helping associations and nonprofits figure out these exact kinds of tough tech decisions. My goal today, simple, to give you a straightforward, no-nonsense way to think about this choice. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll talk about the different philosophies behind these two systems. Then we'll jump into their core capabilities. After that, we'll get real about the key trade-offs, because nothing's perfect. Then we'll go over some critical questions you need to ask your own team. And finally, we'll talk about your next strategic step. Sounds good? Let's get started. Okay, section 1. Look, before we even touch on features and functionality, we've got to understand the DNA of each system. The why behind them. Because honestly, their core philosophy, it shapes everything. How it feels to use, what it's cost, and getting this is absolutely the key to figuring out which one might be right for you. So here's the best way I've found to think about this. On one hand, you've got CiviCRM. Think of it like a community-built Swiss Army knife. It's incredibly versatile, has a tool for pretty much everything, and it's always being improved by this huge global community. Then, on the other hand, there's Tendenci. Now, this was built from the ground up to be an enterprise-grade system. It's all about control, serious scalability, and you owning every single line of code. So you see, two totally different approaches to solving a lot of the same problems. All right, so how do those philosophies actually translate into what these platforms can do? In this next section, we're just going to look at their core capabilities. And just to be clear, my goal here isn't to pick a winner. It's to give you an objective look at what each platform is really, really good at because of how it was designed. Let's start with CiviCRM. Really, its entire reputation is built on two key things: amazing flexibility and how well it integrates with the tools you're probably already using. And you can see how these things all connect, right? Because it integrates so deeply with systems like WordPress, Drupal, and Joomla, your website and your database basically become one cohesive unit. You're getting these really powerful modules for members and events right from the get-go, and here's the kicker, 0 software licensing fees. And the foundation for all of this? A massive, vibrant global community that is constantly building, sharing, and making it better. Okay, now let's pivot over to Tendenci. Its strengths are a little different, but just as powerful. We're talking about total control over your tech and a system that's just built to scale. So this is a completely different value proposition. With Tendenci, you own the source code, period. That means you have total freedom in how and where you host it. And notice the pricing. No per user or per admin fees, which makes your costs really predictable as you grow. And this is a huge one for more complex organizations. Multi-chapter or federation management isn't some extra thing you bolt on. It's baked right into the core of the system. Okay, let's get into what I think is the most important part of any software evaluation, the trade-offs. Look, no platform is perfect. What one person calls a weakness, another person might see as a totally acceptable trade-off for getting something else they really want. It's all about figuring out how these trade-offs line up with what your organization actually needs. So let's look at some real feedback from people who actually use this stuff. This quote, yeah, it's pretty blunt, but it really gets at a common feeling about CiviCRM. The interface can feel a bit clunky, and keeping it running often takes some real technical know-how. But let's reframe that for a second. Is it a flaw, or is it a deliberate design choice? See, the trade-off with CiviCRM is that it prioritizes incredible deep functionality and customization over a polished, super easy, out-of-the-box user interface. So the real question for your team is, which one of those is more important to you? And really, this gets at the heart of the open source trade-off. It applies to both of them. You get this amazing potential, this incredible freedom. But that freedom comes with responsibility. It requires a commitment. So to unlock all that power, whether it's with CiviCRM or Tendenci, you absolutely have to have a plan for how you're going to manage the technical side of things. So here's the key takeaway for this whole section. None of these things are deal breakers, not at all. They're just trade-offs. And your job is to evaluate them against your specific requirements, your team's real-world capabilities, and your biggest goals. Okay, so with that in mind, it's time to turn the lens inward. Because the right choice isn't going to jump out at you from some feature comparison chart. It's going to come from answering some really honest, sometimes tough, questions about your own association. So here are 5 big questions you need to be asking your team. Number 1, how complex is your membership structure really? 2, do you actually need multi-chapter capabilities? 3, what's the real complexity of your event management? 4, is that super tight integration with your specific website CMS an absolute must-have? And finally, be honest with yourselves. What are your actual in-house technical resources? The answers to these questions, that's what's going to point you in the right direction. So, as you can see, getting through all this complexity isn't about finding some simple magic answer. It's really about building a smart, strategic path forward, one that leads to a decision you'll still be happy with years down the road. So, what's the bottom line? Well, both CiviCRM and Tendenci are fantastic platforms. They both serve a lot of associations really, really well. But the right one for you? That depends entirely on the unique details of your budget, your structure, and your big plans for growth. And look, I'm not just talking theory here. I've personally helped guide more than 200 associations through this very same decision. We've weighed these factors and figured out how to align the right tech with their specific mission. And in all that time, you start to see the same mistakes pop up again and again. So many associations get lured in by a free software license, and they completely forget to calculate the total cost of ownership. Things like implementation, getting your data moved over, training, ongoing help, all that stuff. And just as often, they really overestimate the time and skills their internal team can actually commit to making it successful. And honestly, that's where getting some expert guidance can make all the difference. If you want to figure out which of these platforms really aligns with your needs, and more importantly, avoid those really common, really costly pitfalls, I'd like to invite you to book a 30-minute consultation with us. It's completely complimentary. Just visit us at smartthoughts.net to schedule a call, and let's start building that confident path forward for your association.